Though it's been over 2 decades since they split, Thornton says they still have a very, very close friendship.
We're still very good friends, but you know, she's got her world, I've got mine.
Just days ago, Billy Bob Thornton opened up about one of Hollywood's most talked about romances, his whirlwind marriage to Angelina Jolie. Over 20 years after their split, the actor finally revealed the real reason it ended, and it's far less scandalous than fans imagined. From vampire-inspired blood necklaces to clashing lifestyles, Thornton gives a candid, refreshingly human look behind the headlines, sharing what it was really like to love, live, and part ways with one of the most famous women in the world. A romance ruined by different lifestyles. Back in the early 2000s, Hollywood got a front-row seat to one of its most unpredictable romances, Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie. Their relationship was equal parts magnetic and mystifying. Two very different people somehow drawn together in a whirlwind of charm, eccentricity, and yes, a little weirdness. Fast forward 20 years, and Thornton is opening up about why it didn't last. And spoiler alert, there wasn't a third party. Just days ago, Thornton, 70, reflected on his 6 marriages during a candid interview. He's been with his 6th wife, Connie England, for over 20 years. They married in 2014 and share a daughter, Bella, now 21. Add 3 more kids from previous relationships, and you see the picture of a man finally grounded in family. Reflecting on his past, Thornton said, "I found the right spot to be. The other times I got married were just like, you had a little too much to drink one night and somebody said, 'We should get married.' You go, 'Yeah, okay.' I always tell people, at least I was trying." His 5th marriage, of course, went to Jolie, from 2000 to 2003. Thornton calls that period one of the greatest times of my life, and says they remain very, very close friends. Their split, he emphasizes, was civilized. "We simply split up because our lifestyles were so different," he explains. That honesty about the breakup, free from scandal, makes his story feel real and relatable. When Billy Bob and Angelina met on the set of Pushing Tin in 1999, sparks flew immediately. Thornton was already established in Hollywood. Jolie was climbing fast, navigating her own personal and professional crossroads. A year later, they eloped in Las Vegas. It was bold, impulsive, and in hindsight, totally them. Almost immediately, the media had a field day. There were headlines about their so-called blood vials, necklaces rumored to contain each other's blood. Vampiric, gothic, intensely romantic, or just plain bizarre. Turns out, it was way more innocent than people imagined. Thornton later explained that the necklaces weren't some dramatic horror show prop, just tiny lockets holding a single drop of blood. It was their little way of carrying a piece of each other when life got busy. Totally weird, maybe, but kind of sweet, right? Of course, the tabloids ran wild. Suddenly, they were vampires, living in dungeons and drinking each other's blood. But Thornton laughs about it now. For them, it was just a quirky gesture, sentimental, romantic, and very human. Behind the headlines, they were just 2 people trying to make a connection work. And make no mistake, it was real. Thornton has called that time one of the greatest in his life. They laughed, they loved, and yes, they had their eccentricities. Even after their split, he says they stayed very, very close friends. There's no bad blood, just 2 people recognizing that their paths were pulling them in different directions. So what really ended it? Thornton says it came down to something surprisingly relatable: lifestyles. Jolie was living a global life, always on the move, traveling, working, and chasing big projects. Thornton, on the other hand, was more homebound, a little anxious, a little guarded. Their worlds just didn't align. He calls it an agoraphobic lifestyle versus a global one. And that fundamental difference, he says, is why they didn't stay together. It's a story a lot of people can relate to. Not every breakup is about betrayal or drama. Sometimes it's just about realizing that 2 people want very different things from life. Thornton's honesty about his insecurities and their incompatibility is surprisingly refreshing. He doesn't villainize Jolie, and he doesn't make it about scandal. He frames it as two people who tried, loved, and ultimately grew in different directions. The media, of course, exaggerated everything: their blood necklaces, their age gap, their eccentricities, turning an honest, passionate connection into a caricature. But for Thornton, those years weren't a circus act. They were a genuine, if unconventional, love story. And despite the divorce, he speaks about it with warmth, humor, and a clear understanding that not all great relationships are meant to last forever. Today, Thornton is in a long-term relationship with his current partner, Connie Angland, and he reflects on his marriage to Jolie with a mix of nostalgia and wisdom. That gothic, vampire romance vibe, it's part of the story, sure, but it doesn't define it. What really matters is the connection, the growth, and the memories. There's a quiet beauty in that perspective. It's a reminder that relationships don't need to end in betrayal, heartbreak, or public drama to be meaningful. Sometimes, love is just about two people sharing a chapter in each other's lives and then moving on, better for the experience. Thornton and Jolie didn't divorce because of scandal. They divorced because they were on different paths, and that's okay. Now, let's relive what happened between the two from falling in love to falling apart. A 3-year love story. Hollywood loves a good romance, and few were as magnetic and as unpredictable as the love story between Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie.
Billy Bob Thornton is looking back on his time with ex-wife Angelina Jolie, and he's got nothing but love.
Their relationship wasn't just about being famous or creating headlines. It was about two intensely creative, fiercely independent people colliding in a perfect storm of chemistry, eccentricity, and, well, a little chaos. For 3 years, they captivated the public, tabloids on their toes, and somehow made their offbeat love look like something out of a noir romance. Maybe this is one of the reasons why Bob has to let go too. It all started in 1999. Thornton, already a respected actor and Oscar winner,
And the Oscar goes to Billy Bob Thornton for Sunday.
had the quiet gravitas of a seasoned Hollywood vet, while Jolie, still a rising star, radiated that electric energy only she could pull off. Their first meetings weren't the spark at first sight kind of cliché, but there was undeniably something there. Two people who could read each other without words, who understood the thrill of living on the edge, professionally and personally. From what insiders say, it was less about sweeping romantic gestures and more about this mutual recognition. These two were kindred spirits in a world of masks. Their relationship escalated quickly. By 2000, they were practically inseparable and eloped in Las Vegas. Spontaneous, impulsive, and undeniably them. There was a sense of rebellion, as if they were saying, "Forget what anyone thinks. This is ours." It wasn't traditional, but it wasn't meant to be. Their love was intense, fast, and lived loudly. That energy carried through their first year of marriage, where they mixed quiet evenings at home with adventurous, public-facing appearances that made everyone wonder just what they were like behind the scenes. One of the hallmarks of their early love was their eccentricity. They thrived on odd, romantic gestures, the infamous blood necklaces being the most memorable. But that was just one of many ways they celebrated their bond. There was a playfulness, a willingness to be weird together in a world that often demanded perfection. Fans and media were fascinated, and frankly, a little unsettled by how different they were from the typical Hollywood couple. They didn't need the approval of anyone outside their little orbit. During their 3 years together, Thornton and Jolie explored every aspect of life as a couple. They were partners in crime on movie sets, in public appearances, and in the private chaos of life as two intensely busy people. Friends reported that they loved nothing more than sharing small, private moments, whether it was cooking together or just laughing at the absurdity of the media circus swirling around them. Despite their fame, They could be remarkably down-to-earth when it was just the two of them. But it wasn't all magic. Their differences, which might have seemed quirky or minor at first, started to become more pronounced over time. Jolie was ambitious in a global sense, constantly moving, taking on high-profile projects, and building her career and humanitarian profile at a breakneck pace. Thornton, while successful and passionate about his craft, preferred more stability, time at home, and the quieter rhythms of life. Their love was strong, but their lifestyles sometimes clashed in ways that couldn't be ignored. Still, they were devoted to making it work. Friends and insiders often describe them as playful, deeply connected, and devoted in their own intense way. They challenged each other, laughed together, and even weathered the tabloid storms with a sense of humor. Thornton, in particular, has spoken about the intensity of that time as one of the best periods of his life, and Jolie reportedly remembers the early years fondly as well. A passionate, unconventional romance that burned brightly. Public fascination only heightened the intensity of their relationship. Every move they made was dissected by the media. Casual appearances became headlines, jokes became quotes, and their private eccentricities became public spectacle. For some couples, that pressure could break them. For Thornton and Jolie, it amplified the intensity, but also exposed the cracks. By 2003, after 3 years of marriage, they realized that love alone wasn't enough to bridge the gap between their lives. While there was no betrayal or scandal, their paths had diverged. Thornton has described the split as civilized, a rare word in Hollywood, and emphasized that they remained close friends afterward. It was an understanding, a recognition that sometimes love is about connection rather than permanence. What made their relationship stand out wasn't just the passion or eccentricity, but the combination of intensity and respect. Thornton has admitted that he didn't feel he could keep up with the global life Jolie wanted, and she had ambitions and responsibilities that demanded a different kind of partner. The result wasn't heartbreak in the dramatic public sense. It was two people consciously choosing different directions while still honoring the love they shared. During their time together, they had fun pushing boundaries, whether in public appearances, interviews, or their personal rituals. They reveled in the unusual, the playful, and sometimes the absurd. That's why their love story still resonates. It was messy, human, and utterly unforgettable. It wasn't about fitting a mold or impressing the world. It was about two people living intensely in the same moment, for as long as it lasted. After the divorce, Thornton eventually found long-term stability with Connie England, whom he's been with for over 2 decades. Jolie moved on as well, building her career, family, and humanitarian endeavors. But the Thornton-Jolie chapter remains a defining moment in both of their lives, a reminder that some relationships are meant to burn brightly and briefly, leaving a lasting impact. Looking back, it's easy to see why their relationship captivated the world. There was glamour, yes, but also real emotion, quirks, and a raw authenticity that's rare in celebrity romances. It was love lived fast, loud, and without apology. And even though it lasted only 3 years, the intensity and charm of that period still make it one of the most talked about, fascinating romances in Hollywood history. The story of Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie is about love that was unconventional, passionate, and deeply human. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't meant to be. But for those 3 years, they shared a connection that few could forget, a love full of laughter, eccentricity, and intensity. The kind that leaves a mark long after it's over. Even now, decades later, the story feels electric, inspiring, and, in a way, relatable. Because at its core, it's about what all relationships are really about. Finding someone who sees you, challenges you, and shares a moment in time with you, even if life eventually pulls you in different directions. Thornton and Jolie's love story wasn't about the headlines, the vampire necklaces, or the wild public appearances. It was about two people connecting fiercely, living fully, and understanding that sometimes the most unforgettable love is the one that doesn't last forever, but leaves you richer for having experienced it. The whirlwind with Angelina ended, but for Billy Bob Thornton, the story was far from over. It was just getting interesting. Life after Hollywood's most eccentric romance. Billy Bob Thornton isn't just the guy who was married to Angelina Jolie, though for years that label followed him like a shadow. Over the past 2 decades, he's carved out a life that's as unique, grounded, and interesting as the man himself. From Hollywood actor to writer, musician, and family man, Thornton has shown that life after a high-profile marriage can be fulfilling, complex, and, surprisingly, normal.
I've only had a couple of times in my life when I was carefree, like a period of a couple of years when I thought, you know what, I don't have really any responsibilities.
After his whirlwind romance and marriage to Jolie ended in 2003, Thornton didn't disappear from the spotlight, but he did slow down in a way that reflected his personality. Rather than chase tabloid fame or high-profile relationships, he focused on the things that mattered to him: family, his craft, and building a stable life. By that time, Thornton had already proven himself as a versatile actor with range, charm, and a distinctive intensity that made him unforgettable. Roles in films like Sling Blade, Monsters Ball, and The Man Who Wasn't There had established him as a serious talent, one who could balance mainstream appeal with indie credibility. In the years after his split from Jolie, Thornton continued to work steadily in Hollywood. He took on a mix of quirky, offbeat roles and more conventional parts, showing audiences that he wasn't defined by tabloid headlines. Fans remember his edgy performances, but those close to him say that off-screen, Thornton has always been calm, grounded, and selective about the projects he takes on.
So don't delude yourself into thinking you're a rancher.
His career trajectory, post-Jolie, shows a man comfortable in his own skin, willing to experiment creatively, and unafraid of aging gracefully in an industry obsessed with youth and scandal. Meanwhile, his personal life flourished in ways that were far more private. Thornton has been with Connie, his 6th wife, for over 20 years. Their relationship had been steady long before that. Together, they've built a quiet, family-focused life that includes their daughter Bella, now 21, alongside Thornton's 3 other children from previous relationships. For Thornton, family has become the anchor he never had in earlier marriages, a grounding force that allows him to navigate fame without losing himself. He often jokes about his past impulsive marriages, saying some were the result of surface decisions. In addition to family and acting, Thornton has pursued other creative avenues. Music, in particular, has been a lifelong passion. He's released albums, performed live, and collaborated with other musicians, proving that his artistic sensibilities extend beyond the silver screen. This side of him often surprises fans who know him only from his film roles. Thornton isn't just an actor. He's a storyteller in multiple forms, someone who channels emotion and experience into every outlet he explores. Over the years, Thornton has also embraced a more reflective approach to fame. Unlike his earlier years, when his relationships and eccentricities dominated headlines, he now handles public attention with humor and grace. He's candid about the pressures of celebrity, the strange fascination with his life, and the lessons learned from being a public figure. In interviews, he balances self-deprecation with insight, making it clear that he's comfortable in his own life and no longer feels the need to impress anyone outside his family and closest friends. Geographically, Thornton's life has shifted away from the constant chaos of Hollywood. He tends to favor quieter spaces that allow him to enjoy his family, write, and focus on creative projects without intrusion. Those who know him describe him as someone who values privacy, but is also warm, funny, and deeply loyal to the people he cares about. He's the kind of celebrity who can slip under the radar if he wants, but when he chooses to step into the spotlight, his charisma and authenticity are undeniable. Thornton's evolution over the past 2 decades also shows a man who's grown into his role as a father, raising 4 children, balancing a career, and maintaining a long-term relationship with Connie England has given him stability he didn't always have in the past. His daughter Bella, in particular, represents a new chapter, a family life that feels grounded and meaningful, far removed from the tabloid frenzy that once surrounded him. In Hollywood, the past is never far behind, and Thornton's early 2000 romance with Jolie remains a defining moment in public memory. But for Thornton himself, that chapter is just one part of a much bigger story. Today, he's a multifaceted artist, a devoted father, and a man who has learned to navigate fame on his own terms. He's still charmingly eccentric, still creative, and still entirely himself, but now with the wisdom, calm, and stability that come from 2 decades of life experience. The life of Billy after his marriage to Angelina Jolie is proof that fame and love don't have to define your future. He's built a life that's quietly extraordinary, full of creativity, family, and personal fulfillment. Where once he may have been known as the edgy, unpredictable actor married to one of Hollywood's biggest stars, now he's recognized as a man who's found balance, contentment, and his own version of happiness. Whether on screen, in music, or in the quiet corners of family life, Thornton continues to leave his mark. A reminder that some of the most compelling stories aren't about scandal or drama, but about the slow, steady evolution of a person who knows who he is and where he wants to be. While Billy Bob was finding his footing after their split, Angelina was about to prove that heartbreak could be the launchpad for something even bigger. Rising, thriving, and becoming unstoppable after divorce. When Jolie and Billy went their separate ways in 2003, it was the end of a whirlwind romance that Hollywood couldn't stop talking about. But for Jolie, that ending wasn't a setback. It was the beginning of a meteoric rise that would redefine her life, her career, and her global impact. From blockbuster movies to humanitarian work, from family life to becoming one of the most influential women in the world, Jolie proved that thriving after heartbreak is not only possible, it can be extraordinary. At the time of her divorce from Thornton, Jolie was in her mid-20s, already gaining recognition as a bold, unconventional actress. Roles in films like Girl, Interrupted, for which she won an Academy Award, and the Lara Croft Tomb Raider franchise had established her as a force to be reckoned with in Hollywood. Yet, despite her success on screen, her personal life was still very much under the microscope, and the public had just witnessed a relationship that seemed larger than life. For some, it could have been overwhelming, but for Jolie, it became fuel. In the years following her split, she channeled her energy into work and causes she was passionate about. Her career choices were deliberate, moving from blockbuster action films to intense, emotionally charged roles that showcased her range. She wasn't just an action star or a pretty face. She was an actor willing to challenge herself, take risks, and use her craft to tell meaningful stories. Films like Girl, Interrupted, and later Changeling demonstrated her ability to dive into complex characters, earning her both critical acclaim and a reputation as one of the most versatile performers of her generation. But Jolie didn't stop at acting. Around the same time, she began to immerse herself in humanitarian work, a path that would come to define a large part of her public identity. She traveled extensively, raising awareness for refugees and displaced families, and eventually became a special envoy for the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR. Her advocacy wasn't just a side project, it was a central part of who she became. The world watched as Jolie evolved from a Hollywood starlet into a global citizen with purpose, compassion, and influence. Her personal life also flourished in profound ways. After her split from Thornton, she began a high-profile relationship with Brad Pitt, which eventually led to marriage and a family that captured the public's imagination. Together, They built a blended family of 6 children, combining adoption and biological children, and navigated the challenges of raising kids in the spotlight. Through it all, Jolie maintained a fierce commitment to both her family and her work, demonstrating that it was possible to thrive in multiple arenas at once. Jolie's resilience after her marriage to Thornton wasn't just about career choices or family planning. It was about owning her narrative. She had been in the public eye, had been the subject of wild tabloid speculation, and yet she refused to let any of it define her. Instead, she used her experiences as a foundation for growth.
And most of all to my family, my love, your support and your guidance make everything that I do possible.
She made bold choices, whether it was taking on controversial roles, openly discussing personal struggles, or dedicating herself to causes larger than herself. Every step of the way, she showed that heartbreak could be transformative. By the late 2000s, Jolie had become a symbol of empowerment. Her performances were more nuanced, her activism more prominent, and her voice more influential.
Everybody, I hope, will at least have a great cinematic experience, entertain you, but also, I think, draw you in and make you think and feel.
She received recognition not only for her acting, but also for her humanitarian efforts, earning awards and honors for her work with refugees and her advocacy for human rights. The world saw a woman who didn't just survive, she thrived, using every opportunity, every experience, and yes, even past heartbreak, to shape the life she wanted. Her personal evolution was equally inspiring. Jolie became a role model for self-care, health awareness, and autonomy. Her very public decisions about her health, including preventive medical choices, sparked global conversations and encouraged women everywhere to take control of their own well-being. She showed that strength wasn't just about fame or wealth. It was about knowledge, self-respect, and proactive action. Professionally, she continued to diversify. Jolie directed films, producing stories that mattered to her and telling narratives from unique perspectives. Her work behind the camera, including films like Unbroken and First They Killed My Father, showcased a commitment to storytelling that went beyond celebrity. She became a creator, a voice for stories that needed to be told. This shift wasn't just a career move, it was a reinvention, one that demonstrated her ability to evolve and thrive on her own terms. Even in her personal relationships post-Thornton, Jolie maintained the same fearless independence that defined her early career. She pursued love, family, and connection, but never at the expense of her identity or her ambitions. The experiences of her early marriages, including the high-profile and eccentric Thornton era, seem to have shaped her into someone who could embrace love while staying grounded in her purpose. 2 decades on, Jolie's life, Thornton is a testament to resilience, reinvention, and relentless drive. She transformed the narrative from Hollywood tabloid curiosity to a global icon of empowerment, artistry, and activism. She thrived not by erasing her past, but by embracing it, learning from it, and using it to fuel her ambitions. What could have been a story defined by drama became one defined by triumph, vision, and influence. In retrospect, her marriage to Thornton seems like a small but pivotal chapter in a life that would continue to expand, inspire, and captivate. It was a moment of connection, intensity, and learning, a beginning rather than an ending. The years that followed proved that Jolie's spirit was unstoppable, her ambitions limitless, and her capacity to thrive beyond heartbreak unmatched. Angelina Jolie's story after Billy isn't just about moving on, it's about leveling up. She went from a young, daring actress in an eccentric Hollywood marriage to one of the most accomplished, respected, and influential women on the planet. And she did it all with that trademark intensity, fearlessness, and undeniable charisma that has defined her entire career. Jolie at 50. Angelina Jolie's heart today feels deeply grounded yet wildly alive, a mix of a mother's fierce love and a global citizen's burning empathy. As she hits 50, she's not just reflecting on her past, she's leaning into purpose like never before. She's more than an actress now. Her kids, her activism, and her creative projects define her life and drive her forward every single day. Motherhood is her anchor. With 6 children, Maddox, Pax, Zahara, Shiloh, Knox, and Vivian, Jolie's role as a mom is central to everything she does. Now that many of her kids are older and more independent, she's rediscovering herself creatively, but always with family in mind. Her kids remain her first priority, and she navigates fame and work with the care and attention of someone deeply committed to raising grounded, compassionate children. Her humanitarian work is stronger than ever. Over the past decade, she's championed refugees and displaced families, focusing especially on women and children affected by war and poverty. She's started initiatives aimed at providing access to education, health care, and platforms for their voices to be heard. For Jolie, this work isn't just advocacy. It's a calling, a way to make a meaningful difference in the lives of people who have faced unimaginable challenges. At the same time, she continues to pursue her creative passions selectively. She acts less frequently, choosing projects that resonate personally or that allow her children to be part of the process. She's also become more involved behind the camera, directing and producing films that tell powerful, often untold stories. Her recent work reflects a thoughtful, mature approach, telling stories that matter while balancing the demands of family and activism. Turning 50 has also brought Jolie a sense of gratitude and reflection. She's lost loved ones and navigated heartbreak, but she now views aging as a gift, an opportunity to focus on what truly matters.
Not so perfect, not so super, and that's what makes us complex and interesting, and I hope, a little relatable.
Family, impact, and personal growth. Hollywood pressures still exist, but she has learned how to live fully on her own terms, blending a high-profile career with a life that is private, intentional, and purposeful. Despite the fame and scrutiny, she's carving out space for quiet strength. Jolie has embraced authenticity, choosing projects, relationships, and causes that align with her values. She channels her energy into things that make a difference, whether raising her children, creating meaningful art, or standing up for the vulnerable around the world. Jolie, at 50, is not slowing down. She's focusing in, thriving, and leading with purpose. Her heart is open, her mission is clear, and her voice has never been more intentional. She has reinvented herself on her own terms, blending family, artistry, and activism into a life that is as full as it is inspiring. And one thing is certain, she's proving that the second half of life can be even more extraordinary than the first. Did you know they were a thing before? Write your comments down below and subscribe for more in this channel.